Isabel Perón. Isabel Martínez de Perón, born Maria Estela Martínez Cartas, the 4th of February 1931, also known as Isabelita, is an Argentine politician who served as President of Argentina from 1974 to 1976. She was the first female Republican head of state in the world. Isabel Perón was the third wife of President Juan Perón. During her husband's third term as president from 1973 to 1974, she served as both vice president and first lady of Argentina. Following her husband's death in office in 1974, she served as president for almost 2 years before the military took over the government. Perón was then placed under house arrest for 5 years before she was exiled to Spain in 1981. In 2007, an Argentine judge ordered Perón's arrest over the forced disappearance of an activist in February 1976, on the grounds that the disappearance was authorized by her signing of decrees allowing Argentina's armed forces to take action against subversives. She was arrested near her home in Spain on the 12th of January 2007. Spanish courts subsequently refused her extradition to Argentina. Since the death of Carlos Menem on the 14th of February 2021, Perón is the oldest living former Argentine president. She met her future husband during his exile in Panama. Juan Domingo Perón, who was 35 years her senior, was attracted by her beauty and believed she could provide him with the female companionship he had been lacking since the death of his beloved second wife Eva Perón Evita, in 1952. Perón brought Isabel with him when he moved to Madrid, Spain, in 1960. Authorities did not approve of Perón's cohabitation with a young woman to whom he was not married, so on the 15th of November 1961 the former president reluctantly married for a third time. Dr. Héctor Campera was nominated by Perón's Justicialist Party to run in the March 1973 presidential elections on the Fragile ticket, a Peronist-led alliance. Campera won, but it was generally understood that Juan Perón held the real power. A popular phrase at the time was Campera al gobierno, Perón al poder, Campera in government, Perón in power. Later that year, Perón returned to Argentina, and Campera resigned to allow Perón to run for president. He chose Isabel as his nominee for the vice presidency to mollify feuding Peronist factions, as these could agree on no other running mate. His return from exile was marked by a growing rift between the right and left wings of the Peronist movement. While Campera represented the left wing, López Rega represented the right wing. The latter was, moreover, supported by the CGT Labor Federation leadership and Isabel herself, and this faction became known by the left as the entorno, entourage, due to the inner circle status Perón afforded them. Juan Perón had long been inimical to the left, but cultivated their support while he was in exile. His sympathies ended, however, after the assassination of CGT leader José Ignacio Rucci by the leftist Montoneros in September. Perón's victory in a snap election called by Congress in September 1973 was always considered likely, and he won with 62% of the vote. He began his third term on the 12th of October, with Isabel as vice president. Perón was by then in precarious health, however. A CIA cable at the time described him as alternating between a lucid state and that of senile dependency. Isabel had to take over as acting president on several occasions during his tenure. Juan Perón suffered a series of heart attacks on the 28th of June 1974. Isabel was summoned home from a European trade mission and secretly sworn in as acting president the next day. Juan Perón died on the 1st of July 1974, less than a year after his third election to office. As vice president, his widow formally ascended to the presidency, thus becoming the first woman in the world to hold the title of president, although she was not the first woman to lead a country. She was popularly known as La Presidente. Although she lacked Evita Perón's charisma, the grieving widow at first attracted support from the nation. She pledged to uphold the social market economy policies embodied in the 1973 Social Pact, as well her husband's long-held economic nationalism. Her first significant economic policy decisions were the enactment of a new, pro-labor employment contract law and the granting to YPF a monopoly over filling stations. Even leftist groups, having fallen out with Juan Perón in previous months, publicly offered support to her. However, she cancelled meetings with various constituent and political groups, and the sympathy resulting from her husband's death soon dissipated. Her government purged most leftists from university posts and the administration, and as her husband and other Argentine presidents had done, used federal intervention powers to unseat leftist governors. Following a string of political murders and a break by the Montoneros with the government, on the 30th of September, Perón signed the anti-terrorism law. This was the first in a series of measures which eroded constitutional rights, ostensibly for the sake of combating leftist violence. Fall from power. After working late into the evening of the 23rd of March 1976, in the hope of averting a renewed business lockout, Perón celebrated her executive assistant's birthday with staff. Alerted to suspicious military exercises, she boarded the presidential helicopter shortly after midnight. It did not fly her to the Quinta de Olivos presidential residence, but to an Air Force base in nearby Jorge Newbery International Airport, where she was formally deposed and arrested. Detention and exile. The majority of Peronist officials in the national, provincial, and municipal governments were promptly arrested, brutally beaten, starved, tortured, and interrogated by military police. Many disappeared permanently during the subsequent Dirty War, including numerous right-wing Peronists. Isabel Perón herself remained under house arrest in Villa La Angostura and other secluded locations for 5 years, and was eventually sent into exile in Spain in July 1981. She continued to serve as official head of her husband's Justicialist party until her resignation in February 1985, nearly a decade after her fall from power. Though there were some who desired her return and wished for her return to power, she refused to stand for election to the presidency when elections were ultimately called in 1983. She lived in Madrid, maintained close links with Francisco Franco's family, and sometimes went to Marbella. Following the restoration of democracy in Argentina, she was pardoned from charges of corruption during her presidency and returned in December 1983 as a guest of honor at President Raúl Alfonsin's inauguration, and in May 1984 to participate in policy talks arranged by Alfonsin and opposition leaders. Still nominally head of Juan Perón's Justicialist party, she played a constructive role in the talks, supporting cooperation between the restive CGT labor union, her party's political base, and Alfonsin. The talks concluded with a weak agreement, and she resigned from her post as titular head of the party. She returned to Argentina once more, in 1988, to resolve probate disputes concerning the Perón estate, then resumed residence in Spain under a very low profile. Thanks for watching HerStory channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel.